Now, this doesn't happen very often. Ferrari dropping a new flagship model, and here we have it, the F80. And what a design this is. This, to me, it's both industrial and it's raw and it's emotional all at the same time, which is not a very easy thing to do. Flavio Manzoni, again, just nailing this design. He got some criticism for the 12 Cilindri, but I think that is also a very beautiful looking car. So this one, we're going to have a look at this from the front, side, and rear, and I can't wait to jump into to talk about this design because, as I said, I think this is a very, very special car, and this is one of these cars that you want to have on a turntable in your garage and just have it spin around slowly and analyze all the details and all the aerodynamic small little features in this car. So before we jump into to Photoshop here, let's have a look at what this car is all about, because there is a lot to talk about here. So let's get started with the spec and tech here. 2026 Ferrari F80 with 1184 horsepower is twice the F40 and then some. This is an article from Car and Driver. I'm going to link it down below as always. So Ferrari has just revealed its new Formula 1 inspired supercar, the 2026 Ferrari F80, which is sixth in line of Halo cars that runs from the 288 GTO to the LaFerrari. So the F80 has a V6. It doesn't have a V12 anymore, and there is a reason for that. A reason that I don't think it's a good enough reason to not slap a V12 in this. But it does have a V6, 3 electric motors, total output 1,184 horsepower. Only 799 will be built and will start reaching US customers in early 2026. So while the F80's two immediate predecessors, the Enzo and the LaFerrari, both had V12s, the F80's internal combustion engine is a 3-liter V6 with a 9,200 RPM redline. The redline is fine here, but I think they had a similar redline for the V12s, if I'm not mistaken. So why does it have a V6? And that is because Formula 1 cars uses V6s right now. But I think that all of us kind of want Formula 1 cars to go back to V12s because they know the howl of those engines were just out of this world. So I definitely want to see V12s back in Formula 1 and also in Ferrari Halo cars. So with zero lag assistance from its electric turbochargers, it makes 888 horsepower with the V6 alone here and 626 pound-feet of torque. Another 296 horsepower is delivered by a trio of electric motors with 2 on the front axle, enabling torque vectoring, and 1 sandwich between the engine and the 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Now, the downforce figures here are just ridiculous. 2,315 pounds of downforce at 155 miles per hour. I wonder how much this weighs if this could actually drive upside down at 155 miles per hour. So how does a car look this clean and sleek generate more downforce than big-winged mutants like the McLaren Senna and the Dodge Viper ACR? So you have active aero across all around this car, with the rear wing hoisting up and angling into the slipstream at 11 degrees in high downforce mode. About the first 2.5 feet of the F80 is dedicated to cooling and downforce, with air channeled from under the car up over the windshield. Essentially, the front is acting like a huge, massive integrated wing in the design itself. And here you can see the front end looking absolutely stunning. At the same time, have some industrial feel to it, but it's still clearly a Ferrari. I love the design of this thing. So you do have the same black mass that we have on the 12 Cilindri, for example, with this graphic feature in the front end, which I do think it's a cool thing from the design team of Ferrari to implement something like that clearly states that this is a Ferrari, even from far away. Ferrari's chief designer Flavio Manzoni says that he deliberately avoided the humanoid look of 2 eyes, 1 mouth imparted by headlights and a grille in favor of something much stranger and compelling. He said sci-fi is an inspiration for this car. You can clearly see it kind of looks like a spaceship to me. So you have a Multimatic 48-volt active suspension, which can relax at low speeds and firm up to compensate for the 2-ton plus of downforce at high speeds. There's no way for the driver, though, to manually deploy the rear wing. So you can't drive through the, school zones and just flex a little bit and pop up the wing if you want to do that. You can't do that because you can't manually pop it up, but it will engage over 37 miles per hour or beyond. So if you're in a low drag mode, tucking in the wing allows for a claimed 217 miles per hour top speed, and that is a limited. So it's limited to 217 miles per hour. 0 to 60 takes about 2.15 seconds, and 124 miles per hour, or 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, in 5.75 seconds. The F80 is a two-seater, of course, but it's an unusual one in that the driver's seat and the passenger, they're slightly offset. The passenger sits a little bit rearward, belted in a top padding added to the carbon tub, while the driver sits forward and gets an adjustable seat. The interior is also very, very subtle, very race car inspired. And this is another detail that I love, the wheel design here. I always said that I love, if I were to pick wheels, I would pick simple 5-spoke design. So you can't get center lock wheels for the F80, and there's a good reason for that. Center locks wouldn't add performance, and Flavio Monzoni wanted 5-spoke wheels for aesthetic reasons. Well done. That's also what I want to see in cars like this, in pretty much every single car. It was hard enough to build 5-spoke carbon fiber wheels that could cope with the forces imposed by the F80, never mind making them center lock. So the F80 comes with standard 5-lug hubs, so you can switch it up in your driveway if you want to. I would not switch out those wheels though. I mean, they look gorgeous. Ferrari is recognizing that the batteries doesn't have an infinite lifespan, and it has a plan to address the issue. So with a program called Ferrari Forever, the company plans to offer high voltage replacement batteries for decades to come. And the price for this, what we'll all want to know here, is $3.1 million, which I think is a bargain, because I think this is going to go up in value over time. This is going to be one of these cars that in 10 years from now, this is going to be a $10 million car. So with that said, let's jump into the fun stuff here and let's talk about this design here, Ferrari F80. I wish we had a better rear view than this top view, but this also gives us some details of the top part of the car. But starting with the front end here, I mean, look at how boxy this design. This brings me back to sort of an 80s style of design, but at the same time, it has this modern emotion to it. And when I said that it looks industrial, I mean, look at the sharp edges that we have going on here. This is sort of an F40 inspired air duct on the side, looking beautiful. Yeah, I do like the front end as well, with this little lip or tongue sticking out at the bottom. And everything here, of course, is completely functional and has aerodynamic features to it. And then we have this black mask, this Batman mask in the front end. The headlights looking very traditional, squared off headlights like this, with a nice LED at the lower section. And look at this sculpted hood up top here, looking beautiful, with these muscles over the front axle that we also have in the rear, which I think looks so nice in the rear, specifically because they follow the exact curvature of the wheels. We're going to have a look at that in just a minute. Then you have this sharp cutoff here, looking like, again, 80s design to me, with the side mirrors mounted behind this shelf onto the door itself, looking very, very cool. These beautiful 5-spoke wheels, classic design, and they're all made of carbon fiber as well, looking very nice. Now, looking at the side view here, and this looks like a proper concept car to me that they put into production, because we have all these very complex surfaces here. First of all, we have this gorgeous muscle over the front axle like we just talked about, and then a straight cut right here, a cut in the body, which this feels, as they said, the first a couple of feet here in the front end, this area is all dedicated to aerodynamics. So this entire piece, air flows in here, flows up on top over the windshield, creating a lot of downforce, pressing the car down onto the ground at high speeds in the front end. And then we have, so this area here feels like the more industrial piece. And then look at the door and how beautifully sculpted this becomes. So we have two different styling philosophies here combined into one, and usually when you do that, it's going to clash a lot. But in this case, I think everything feels like it has a nice continuity to it. And I do like that we have the blacked out pillars here for the greenhouse, and the greenhouse sits extremely low. Beautiful curvature here from the glass going down, dipping down into the rear end and into this massive wing that, again, presses down the rear end at high speeds and giving it a lot of downforce in the rear. Now I wanted to show you this area here because this is a very unique integration of a side air intake. Normally, what we've seen in the past in so many cars is to just have a big side intake, sort of something like this, Gallardo style, where you have an intake here on the side, and then that will cool the engine in the back. But in this case, you can see that we have a new interpretation of this, and this is something I've never seen before, where you have a piece of the bodywork being cut out like this and going into the rear of the body itself, looking very cool and super futuristic. Very sharp design here. Now looking at the rear end here of the side view, we have this curvature. This is what I'm talking about, how this curvature follows the wheel curvature on the inside here, creating almost a comical look for this car, but it still looks very, very nice. And this curvature right here is very similar to what we have in the 12 Cilindri as well. Now the rear end, same cutoff here that we have in the front end, with a big diffuser in the rear. And again, these wheels, just no way I would switch out these wheels. I mean, they look beautiful with the silver inside, black spokes, looking very, very cool. Now last but not least, before we look at the interior, this is by far my favorite view for this car, because again, here you can see all the philosophies in one single shot. You can see the organic features right here. You can see how this is just curved and beautifully sculpted here. I can't imagine how difficult this car would be to design, because this is a car that you really need to be in line with the engineers as a designer. Since this is such a high performance car, you need to bounce back and forth with the designers, the engineers, talk, figure out solutions to not make it just look like a robot, but you also want to have it have this Ferrari soul and this Ferrari emotion to it, and it's not an easy thing to do. I love the boxiness that we have right here in the rear end, and the tail light looking very industrial, robotic, simple lights here. Two small LEDs looking beautiful, and we have a clear separation of the bodywork, and then goes into this functional piece, which is the black piece down here with the big massive diffuser. You have a big tailpipe in the center as well, Ferrari logo here. And these are some details up top that I also think brings me back to the 80s, just looking at this overall styling of this thing. And look how this curvature goes from the front, the framing for the greenhouse, and then continues all the way back here into this beautiful housing for the engine cover sitting underneath here. These are some heat extractors for the engine, of course. And then you have, again, these two fat muscles going parallel like this, two parallel lines that goes and creates this fat muscle over the rear axle, looking like it's planting the car properly onto the ground. This is a car that I cannot wait to see in real life. I'm gonna do my best to try and figure out where I can find an F80 in the future and just go and have a look at it, because this is a car that you need to appreciate in person. You know, videos and photos, it just does not make this car justice. Now looking at the interior here, very simplistic interior, similar to the philosophy we had with the LaFerrari and the Enzo as well, to not make it too complex. Look at the passenger here. The passenger doesn't have anything entertaining to do over there, because this car is a car that do not care about the passengers. This is all about the driver. You can see how everything is angled towards the driver here. Very simplistic and industrial look for this panel. I like that you can see the hardware in this area as well, giving it this more rugged look to it. You have the gear selector here. The steering wheel is all flattened out, both in the bottom and in the top. You have the rev shift light here, a big display behind the wheel. I do think the integration of the display here looks pretty cool. I mean, it's not, I would much rather have a solid housing for it like this, a rounded housing, because if you look at the exterior, it has a lot of round areas to it. So the interior, I would like to have a round housing for the gauge cluster, but the vents look like something out of a spaceship as well. And again, you have this offset seating for the passenger. You can see the passenger seat sits a little further back than the driver's seat, because the driver's seat needs to be adjustable, of course, depending on how tall the driver is. So overall, I mean, the F80, what a car, what a design. This is what you want a supercar Ferrari, a super Ferrari to look like. I mean, it looks almost like something out of a superhero movie or something like that. The roof sits extremely low, and I love that we have all these philosophies like we talked about, the industrial, the rawness, the elegance, the emotions of Ferrari, everything coming together in this beautiful package. And honestly, I cannot wait to see this car in real life.